Hello! Welcome to the first movie review on the channel Lazarus After Dark. And oh boy, today we got a special one for you all because this movie I'm about to talk about, I loved. I actually really liked it. First and foremost, I really liked this movie, but it was critically panned, and I wanted to get into that because I think it's kind of, I don't know, I wouldn't say fair. I wouldn't say fair is the right word. I just think like it's just not fair, I guess. I don't know. But that is Lee Cronin's The Mummy. Now this movie it's basically little girl gets abducted, and then I don't remember, like some years later, her family is contacted saying they found their daughter, and she was in this 3,000-year-old sarcophagus, and therefore that starts the whole horrifying chain of events in this movie. And I think it goes without saying that if you watch the trailers, you watch the advertisement, this is obviously a movie about a possessed little girl. And so, of course, a lot of people are comparing it to The Exorcist, which I think is the wrong way to compare this movie, because this movie, yes, it has a possessed little girl. It's nothing like The Exorcist at all, like tone-wise or story-wise. It is nothing like The Exorcist. In fact, I would say the only thing closely relating it to The Exorcist is the fact that it focuses on a possessed little girl. That's it. It's not The Exorcist. The Exorcist was like this whole like complex story about like a family, a mother who is not religious at all, who is suddenly forced into this world because her daughter is going through a mysterious ailment. Before we even think about possession, it just seems like she's going through a mysterious ailment, and doctors can't help her. And it gets to a point where the doctors are starting to tell the mom that she needs to lean more into like the religious aspect and the church and exorcisms. And the mom is completely horrified, and as the audience, she's basically the audience surrogate, where it's like, I don't know what it's like to deal with someone who's possessed by a demon, quote unquote, but I know what it's like to deal with somebody who is sick with something that a lot of people can't help with. And that's the very core of The Exorcist. That's not in this movie. So therefore, I kind of call bullshit on every comparison that people are making to The Exorcist with this movie. I'm just like, if the only thing that you think of when you think of The Exorcist is possessed little girl and little girl cursing, it's kind of smooth brain. I mean, I don't know what else to say. It's very smooth brained. And it's just like there's more nuance. I mean, there's not more nuance to this movie. This movie isn't... Okay, before I get into anything else, this movie is not like this artistic horror masterpiece. Like, if you want that, I'd recommend Undertone. I recommend, basically, there's other horror movies that have come out, even in this year alone, where I would recommend. Not this one. I would not recommend this one for that. But if you want an Evil Dead, basically an Evil Dead movie, but instead of Deadites, it's Egyptian demons, then I'd recommend this movie, because this movie is just a lot of fun. It's goofy, it's stupid, it's silly, and it's never trying to be serious. And that's where I'm like, when people are like, oh, it's like The Exorcist, I'm like, did we watch the same movie did we watch the same Exorcist movie? Because the one I watched didn't have a silly tone. It wasn't outwardly silly. It basically wasn't a Sam Raimi movie. It was a serious, like, procedural type horror drama, and like even more so, it's more like a drama than it is a horror movie. So, are we sure we watched the same Exorcist movie? Because this movie is very silly. This movie is unapologetically silly. And in fact, I was thinking about this because something that a lot of people, maybe not a lot of people, but because something that I at least thought about was Sam Raimi. I thought about Sam Raimi when I was watching this movie because the camera's whipping around, there's fast editing, there, like, the fact that it is unapologetically silly, but it's also mean. It's like, it felt very much like a Sam Raimi movie from back in the day. And it's unfortunate because I would argue this is a better Sam Raimi movie than the actual Sam Raimi movie that came out this year. Which is, not to say, because I watched Send Help for the second time recently. Still really like that movie a lot, but I remember thinking, this movie could probably be a little bit meaner. It could be a little bit more mean when it comes to like its dark comedy aspects. And then I go into this movie, and this movie it has all the Sam Raimi hallmarks, plus it's very mean. So I was like, this is basically what I wanted, I guess. I don't know. Now, it's just weird because I've also seen people compare this movie to Evil Dead, right? And I think that's a more fair comparison because it is very much Evil Dead adjacent. In fact, I remember hearing like, oh, they might take place in the same universe. And I'm like, we don't need that. I don't need a Mummy Evil Dead crossover. But I did like the Evil Dead aspects of this movie. I actually found those, in a weird way, I found it refreshing. Because, yes, it's like Evil Dead. And Lee Cronin did make an Evil Dead movie with Evil Dead Rise. But I would say this movie is more mean-spirited than Evil Dead Rise. In fact, it's so mean, I found it relatively refreshing that it is so mean. That it is not holding back with how vicious and cruel it is. And it's like, I just found that refreshing because I feel like a lot of horror movies, specifically Blumhouse horror movies, it's basically like, oh, here's a cool premise. Nothing happens. In fact, I remember watching the Evil Dead Burn trailer, and there was a comment that I fully agree with, which was, if Blumhouse made the Evil Dead movies, instead of a Necronomicon or the book, it would be an app or some sort of AI device. And I agree with that. I'm saying this because this is produced by Blumhouse. And I like that there's no like app, there's no like technological like version of why there's evil things happening. It's just a horrible, awful thing happened to this little girl, which we'll get into. And because they removed the wrappings like around her skin and everything, because of that, the evil was unleashed. And I like that. I like that more. I like that the wrapping, like the mummy wrapping, was mainly looked like her skin until you took it off, and then you're like, oh, this is not skin. I thought that was an interesting aspect to this movie, and I just thought, like I said, this movie's not perfect. This movie has a lot of flaws, specifically in the exposition. I was like, okay, we're doing this, whatever. Like I could have dealt with something better, like a better exposition sequence maybe. But I don't know. I think the thing that mainly saved this movie from me hating it was, well, first, the performances. I actually really liked the the parents' performances. I really like them. I like that dynamic of the mom just doesn't want to acknowledge that there's something wrong with her daughter, and the dad is just super freaked out and is trying to get answers to what actually happened. I like that dynamic. I really enjoyed that. And the little girl, Katie, whoever played her, did a good job. Pretty good job of mimicking, like, I don't know, mimicking like somebody that has something off about them, but not in a way that's like, oh, they have I don't know, something real world. I meant like in a way where it's like there's something like not human about this person or this kid. That was a pretty good performance. But I think what really saved this movie was just its mean-spirited tone. It knows what it is. It's not trying to pretend to be like a completely serious work of art or this other type of movie. It knows exactly what it is, and I think all the people, everybody basically shitting on this movie probably wanted something more serious, especially because in the trailers it does say from the producers of Weapons, and I think they wanted something more akin to Weapons than Evil Dead, or maybe more akin to like the recent Evil Dead movies than like Evil Dead 2, which this basically is Evil Dead 2. It's a comedy. It's almost a comedy, but it's so, like I said, so mean. It's so cruel. And I'm like, that's the best aspects to me for horror, is when it is like comedic in a way, or like almost silly, but if you actually think about it, you're like, oh, that's kind of cruel or fucked up. That saves it for me. That always saves it for me, and I like that. Also, just one more thing I want to throw out there. What the hell is a mummy movie? I've been seeing a lot of people say, well, as like a possession movie, this movie's fine. But as a mummy movie, it just doesn't hit it. It just completely misses the mark. And I'm like, what's a mummy movie? Because I get, like, there's movies that feature a mummy as like the monster, where it's basically a zombie but a mummy. But I don't think it's enough to qualify it as a subgenre. I don't think there's enough mummy movies out there, and if there are, I don't think they follow a specific formula where you're like, oh, you're breaking the rules. Like, so I'm like, when people were saying that, I was like, what is that? What's a mummy movie? What are you talking about? So yeah, I don't know what that is, and frankly I do not care to know what that is, because ultimately the point of this video was basically to give a glowing recommendation for Lee Cronin's The Mummy. I'm not even sponsored by this movie. I just really liked it, and is it one of my favorite movies of the year? Yeah. Is it the best horror movie of the year? No, it's not. It's not even close, but it is definitely a favorite, and I haven't forgotten it. I qualify that as an aspect of something movies I like, is like, did it go through one ear and out the other? Like, did I forget about it like a few days afterwards? I still remember the scene. I still remember the scene when they're trying to cut Katie's toenails, and then a big chunk of what we thought was her skin from her leg just pulls up, and it was gross and horrible. So yeah, I really like this movie. I know a lot of people didn't, and I don't know. If you don't like this movie, like, whatever, that's fine. I just think a lot of the main criticisms that people have with this movie, I just didn't agree with. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Yeah, this is gonna be a fun journey. I got different types of videos planned for this channel, and so stick around for that. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.